All right, let's see. That goes over here. And this is health exempt, so we put it over here. Oh, and we can't forget increased health span. Definitely fits into the asset category. What? You're not doing your longevity returns? Better get on it. What is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health Longevity 101 edition. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in a odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. This week, I am pumped because it is that time of year again. No, not outdoor kettlebell season, because that's all year round. It's everyone's favorite season, tax season. And in honor of Americans balancing their books and hoping that somehow, some way they don't owe more money than they already paid, I thought it would only be right to take a look at our longevity balance sheets, along with the strategies and interventions to prevent and mitigate risk. Now, this is a topic that you may want to invest some time in because it does directly correlate with the output of your most valuable asset, you. I love it. We're getting so financial today as the stock market continues to tank. The cool thing about all this is that these liabilities can be prevented and remediated against with a lot of the same interventions. Talk about killing two drones with one stone. I mean, why would we kill any birds? So let's get into it. When it comes down to it, aging is the highest risk factor for many human diseases, including cancer, dementia, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome in general. Longevity, fully explained here, is essentially extending our healthy years as far out as humanly possible. So we can be doing whatever we want, whenever we want, till the very, very end. But it happens to be the longer that we are on this planet, not yet, Elon, not yet, the odds of these not so great cellular liabilities go up. It's the cost of doing business. It's the cost of life. What cellular liabilities are we talking about today? DNA damage, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation and cellular senescence, and neurotoxin accumulation. Well, I know, a lot of big words. So let's dig in. First off, DNA damage. DNA damage is when the cellular structures within DNA becomes abnormal. Not to be confused with a mutation, which is a change in the sequence of standard base pairs. DNA damage causes a change in the structure of genetic material and essentially prevents the replication mechanisms from functioning and performing properly. This is going to happen. There is no getting around it yet. Always have to add the yet. And while most DNA damage can be repaired, the repair systems aren't always 100% efficient, so to say. And it's believed that this unreplicatable DNA accumulates and is one of the main drivers of aging. Now, when you ask, where does this damage come from? Well, it comes from both internal and external sources. Endogenously, or from within us, DNA damage comes from metabolic byproducts like reactive oxygen species, or ROS. And exogenously, or from the outside, comes from things such as radiation, UV rays, X-rays, gamma rays, different environmental toxins, as well as things such as viruses. The new and compelling information theory of aging, proposed by Harvard researchers Dr. David Sinclair, argues that biological aging is a byproduct of our cells losing their identity over time. And this loss of identity is happening down at the DNA level. Finding ways to prevent and reverse this loss of identity could very well be one of the leading factors that increases our longevity. How? We'll see in just a little bit. Moving on and turning up the heat. Mitochondrial dysfunction. You probably know of mitochondria as the power stations of your cells. What you may not have known is these chemical power plants have a bacterial origin, and bacterial DNA. Over time, for a number of different reasons, including environmental and nutritional factors, our mitochondria become weak and leaky, opening up the opportunity for this foreign substance to escape into our circulation. And because of their bacterial ancestry, these molecules contribute to an inflammatory response. No one likes leaky power plants in the outside world or in your inside world. So keeping your mitochondria healthy is a focus worth having. Trust me. Next, inflammation and cellular senescence. All right, we all know chronic inflammation is no bueno. It accelerates basically every disease and aging process throughout our bodies. One of the main accelerators of chronic inflammation throughout our bodies is the stoppage of our normal cell cycle. AKA our cells get lazy and they just stop doing anything. And then they get bored and they start causing trouble. Sounds like you, right? I'm just kidding. Sounds like me. Cellular senescence is defined as the irreversible arrest of our normal cell cycle. And it's thought to be driven by a number of different mechanisms, including telomere shortening, genotoxic stress, as well as inflammatory cytokines. And this cellular arrest is thought to be a good and a bad thing. A good thing because it puts on the brakes from our body passing on any DNA insults that could potentially lead us down a line of disease. But it's a bad thing because these senescent cells just stop and they hang around and then they start to secrete inflammatory molecules such as inflammatory cytokines, adding to low-grade chronic inflammation. This is a definite longevity liability. And increasing evidence suggests that the clearance of senescent cells in animal models attenuates the progression of age-related diseases. Okay, you got my attention. But before we go to the potential longevity fixes, we gotta talk about our last liability, neurotoxic accumulation. Neurodegenerative disease is on the rise. The scary part about all this is that it's a slow-moving process that doesn't truly expose itself until it's usually too late. In this day and age, prevention truly is the only current option. Being awake is a high-cost business. We humans have billions of neurons firing at any given moment throughout the day. And with all these biochemical reactions going on up in the noggin, there has to be some biochemical waste, right? And these are typically inflammatory proteins and plaque. Some notable ones being beta amyloid and tau, which have been associated with the neurodegenerative disease Alzheimer's. What else? Well, research has indicated that inflammatory molecules and even bacteria have the ability to traverse the once thought impenetrable wall, which is the blood-brain barrier. Kind of like what that dude on the news has been rambling about for like the last 5 years. We're gonna build the biggest and the best, okay? 1,000,000 feet high. This blood-brain traversal may add even more risk to this longevity liability. There's still so many unknowns and changing information on this topic as research progresses. But for now, like I said before, prevention is the best and really only intervention we have at our disposal. And good news, we come fully equipped with one of the best prevention mechanisms on the market. And with that, let's move on to the what can you do section. Here's the deal. Longevity is closely tied to the lifestyle that you live and the environment that you put yourself in. The food you eat, the drinks you drink, the movement you do or don't do, the sleep you get, and the sun, air, and nature that you ingest all play a substantial role here. So here's the prevention pill. I'm kidding. No pills. Do this all natural. Come on. First, assess and shore up your environment. It is a confirmed fact that we spend 80+% of our lives indoors, shielded from the environment that our ancestors once called home. And I'd bet a pretty penny that out of that 80 to 90%, you can identify 3 to 5 places where you spend the bulk of that time. Your home, your office, insert funny joke here. Oh, I was supposed to think of a joke to add here. Moving on. So it would definitely be advantageous of you to shore up these environments that you spend most of your waking hours in. And your sleeping ones too. So here are my go-to tips. Assess the daily products that you use, the potential chemicals and pollutants in your space, cleaning supplies, self-care items, so-called air fresheners. Many of these are not helping your healthy cause. These harsh chemicals get inhaled or absorbed, setting up many of the cellular liabilities that we just talked about to begin progressing. So review your labels, do your research on the products that you use, and try to go natural where you can. While you're at it, open your windows and let that nature in. Next, avoid, surprise, surprise, inflammatory compounds. Any non-asset enhancing or survival dependent inflammation should be avoided at all costs. Some external sources being highly processed foods, alcohol, air pollution, etc., etc., etc. Chronic inflammation over the span of 20, 30, 40 years causes a downstream of very, very nasty health effects, increasing one's risk for all the major diseases that make up metabolic syndrome. Furthermore, like we covered, inflammatory compounds have the ability to bypass the blood-brain barrier, aiding to the potentially harmful accumulation of neurotoxins and plaques. And while you're avoiding all that, you should explore different anti-inflammatory measures. How do you do this? Some ways are to eat plant-heavy, plant-focused meals, high in antioxidants, high in phytochemicals, the very compounds that neutralize free radicals and reactive oxygen species. Another way to do this is to explore time-restricted feeding and different fasting protocols. Many of these will trigger your internal self-recycling program known as autophagy, and also activate pathways that protect the identity of your DNA. Remember? Pretty important stuff. Oh yeah, also combat cellular senescence. We cover fasting, the types, the benefits, the tips, the tricks, all over this channel. I'll link it all below, but there is a ton of content that if you're interested, you can get into the weeds and get into the weeds fast. And speaking of anti-inflammatory measures, another one is moving. Something that I have not done this whole video, except with my arms, like this, because I talk with my hands. Movement is medicine. Motion is lotion. Flowing is glowing. Okay, enough? All right. By moving, by strength training, you keep your mitochondria healthy, your cells strong, your joints fluid, and the endorphins flowing. Exercise also induces heat stress, which activates heat stress proteins and drives a anti-inflammatory response, which is good. So move. And what's all this without recovery? Get your sleep. We've talked about the grave importance of sleep over the years. Like literally, if you ignore sleep, you're going to be going to the grave earlier. Statistically speaking. It's associated with key biological functions such as improved energy metabolism, disease preventing and fighting properties, emotional overnight therapy, and overall lower risk of metabolic disease in general. But maybe none as important as the cleanup that commences when we close our eyes and enter deep sleep. This is a cleanup of inflammatory plaques and proteins via the glymphatic system. Many top neurobiologists point to this system as one of the top prevention mechanisms for neurodegenerative disease, or one of the biggest longevity liabilities out there. Like we've talked about, neurodegenerative disease is something that takes time to come to fruition. There is no known successful reversal, only prevention. So when in doubt, sleep on it. So there you have it, your longevity liabilities and some preventative measures to go along with it. You are now all set to reap this year's longevity returns. Keep investing. Thought I had a 20 in here. Son of a...